This is what happens when like you shave your head the day you're gonna shoot a video. It's shiny. It's like turtle wax. What does it take to be a tournament ref in Airsoft? And can a normal weekend style field ref be a tournament referee? Initially, to this question, I say no. And I only say no because most Airsoft tournaments do not play in the same sense that a regular game would. Look at your standard weekend recreational gameplay, right? The meat and potatoes of Airsoft is on Saturdays and Sundays, rentals, all this stuff. If you get shot and either intentionally don't call it or you just don't feel it for whatever reason, a referee checks you on the spot or they call you out on the spot. But what's happening is as soon as that penalty gets assessed, the penalty is enforced. I'm going to say 80 to 90% of Airsoft tournaments, the penalties are not assessed until after the round ends. So, for instance, in Speed QB, I believe in Jungle Ball they still do this. In most speed style Airsoft tournaments, if a kid doesn't call it or a player doesn't call a hit, that hit is not or that penalty is not assessed until after. Yeah. Let's say I, as a ref, as a tournament ref, see a kid not call a hit, and I go, "Hey, you're out." I, as the ref, just enforced the wrong rule, and because that player knows that, he's going to tell me there's going to be an exchange of dialogue. Like, what do you mean you don't assess penalties until after the fact? And then because he's distracted, the player is distracted from the match. Now I am impacting the course of the match. Or let's also say that player just goes, okay, cool, I'm out. And that player walks off. That also impacts the match because that wasn't supposed to happen. That's not the natural flow that the match is supposed to follow. It is the referee's job to understand the rules and to enforce the rules as they're written. If the ref doesn't understand that, usually it's just innocent negligence on their part, or in my experience with newer tournament refs, they forget that. They just forget because they are so used to birthday parties and they're so used to Saturday games and Sunday games and the standard Airsoft stuff where if you see a kid get hit and keep playing, you go, hey, you're out. Because they're so used to that, because like 90% of their Airsoft experience as a ref is that, and now you have to transition them away from that, it can be a little bit more confusing. It's basically the equivalent of like a match director or a tournament coordinator, which is usually what I do. It's really incumbent upon the person in charge of the tournament to remind their refs, hey, who has any last minute questions? Every round, before you start a round, just bring them all in and go. It's usually when you give them the assignments, you go, hey, who has a question? Okay, no questions. Remember, penalties are not assessed until after the match. So when I blow the whistle, you guys keep your mouth shut. That's usually what I do. I also, not keep your mouth shut in a bad way, but like literally, there is no, unless there's a safety reason, there is no reason for a ref to have to say anything as far as the match goes until the end, unless, someone got hurt, you have to call blind man or something like that. But I also encourage referees to wear a full face or some sort of face protection because I've noticed personally, I'll just wear sunglasses and I'll see something happen in front of me and I'll open my mouth like I'm going to speak, but that's going to give that player an indication of something. And because he sees or she sees that I was going to open my mouth, that confirms to them that they did get hit and they walk out. So there's pros and cons, but it is unrealistic to think that if I'm a field owner or if I'm a head ref or whatever, and I'm putting a tournament on and I don't train my refs to the standard of the tournament and I don't address how specifically it contrasts with normal gameplay, then those refs are going to screw that tournament up and it might put a bitter taste in everyone's mouth for future tournaments. So whoever's in charge of the refs, usually there'll be a tournament coordinator or a head ref. It is their responsibility to make sure that their tournament refs understand and remember that you're not reffing a rec game. You're reffing a specific tournament that may have different rules.